Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming over here in Cucina Comfort Foods in Arzo Hotel Manila. And we're so grateful that you guys are all here. I think based on the attendance, we actually are more than what we're expecting to come. So before we start, I'd like to acknowledge, of course, all the media partners that we have here. We'd like to thank, of course, Philippine Star, Chinese Commercial, Filipino Mirror, PH Update, Edge Davao, Malaya Business Insight, Business Mirror, Philippine Graphic, Village Connect Magazine, Modern Journal Trends, Manila Bulletin, World News Daily, Mindanao Daily News, Manila Times, Business World, Manila Standard, Chinese Commercial News, the Metropolista. Of course, we have United Daily News, Daily Tribune, Inquirer.net, and Tech and Lifestyle. Okay, once again, thank you so much for coming over. Some of you, we saw already from the previous media launch, and again, thank you for coming over. Now, this would be a different topic this time, but I'm sure you'll get interested about this because I guess this will be the first, if I'm not mistaken, in the Philippines. So, with no further ado, I'm just going to introduce first one of our speakers. He's the one who's going to introduce the rest, of course, of our speakers for today. May I call on the Asia Pacific Harnyss representative, Jeffrey Vocolo.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Vocolo. I'm honored to be here. I can speak for everyone here. We're happy to be in the Philippines and honored to be in front of everyone here today. So thank you very much for coming out and being present. So a little background about myself. I've been in the energy infrastructure business for over 40 years on the conventional generation side and renewable energy side. So 22 years specifically just in renewable energy. And in 1934, Thomas Edison stated, in the future, all energy will be derived from the sun. He actually made that statement. His prediction was 100 years, and I think he almost got that right, but we beat that time frame a little bit. There's countries, specifically Germany and Europe now, that during the day, sometimes that whole day, solar energy runs that country. So it's pretty impressive. But the key word I said is during the day. So a little bit about solar energy. In 1954, in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, where I grew up, the first solar panel was put on a telephone pole by Bell Laboratories. It's still producing power to this day. So we all know solar energy works, but solar energy has its limitations, right? Just during the day. Sun comes up, we produce power by solar energy. Sun goes down, that's it. So problems with that is most of the time that we actually capture that energy is when people are not home, and a lot of that energy really is just going to waste, or it goes back to the grid. And what happens, when the utilities struggle with it, California being one, Hawaii being another, because there's so much of a percentage of solar energy on the grid that it develops a duck curve. And then there's all types of situational problems that derive from that, where they have to start at peaker plants to try to bring conventional generation online. So, real problem with that. So being in the industry for a long time, one of the problems that we've always tried to tackle was how do we get that energy during the day, how do we store that energy, and how do we use that energy at night? So probably about 8-10 years ago, we started out with lead acid gel batteries, and then that went into nanocarbon batteries, and about 5-6 years ago, Tesla Enphase Energy came out with lithium ion batteries, and we've installed a lot of Tesla batteries. So we always thought, wow, this is great. We have the holy grail. We have lithium now. This is the answer. And what we found out, especially in the last couple years, is lithium now really has its limitations. Capacity problems, depth of discharge problems. Lithium is a great storage for short-term duration, not long-term energy storage. And we experience, and I know the Philippines, you guys have experienced a lot of typhoons, which are devastating. And we have two being in the islands. I'm from Guam. Joe Rosario is from Guam here. And, we've experienced a lot of typhoons. And we had about, in 2023 last year, we had Typhoon Mawar that went through. Most of the island was out of power for about 3 months, 4 months. We had about 600 lithium installations on the island of Guam. About 90% of them failed. So short-term duration, great. Long-term energy storage, it's not. So we went around, we've been trying to find that holy grail, the answer to long-term energy storage. And a lot of the companies that we vetted, there was some criteria that we were looking for. Hydrogen had to be safe, and to us that meant low pressure with hydrogen. It had to make economic sense. It had to make business sense. And a couple other check the boxes that we're looking for. We vetted about 30 companies. No company that we found, we thought that we could actually use hydrogen with solar energy and other renewable energy sources to come up with that long-term energy storage that we were looking for. About 8 months ago, we ran into these two gentlemen here, and I'm going to introduce everybody in a minute, but we ran into these two gentlemen. They're the founders of Harnyss. Brilliant guys, brilliant technology. They've gotten scientists from around the world, put different technologies together, which they'll go through and explain the technology in a couple minutes. And they actually have found the answer. So Joe Rosario and myself, we went to Fort Worth, Texas. We met these guys, vetted the technology, and at the end of, and we brought in some of our engineers too, and we went through everything. At the end of vetting Harnyss, we, sat down at the table and we said, guys, everything's checking out, but it just seems it's too good to be true. And they explained to us that they were getting that all the time. And they've been vetted by the Department of Defense, with the U.S. military, and some other pretty prestigious customers. And the technology's real, it's here, it's commercialized, they're deploying it, and without further ado, I'll let them go through it. But I am the part of our group is the representative in Asia Pacific for Harnyss, and if you allow me, I'd like to introduce our group. Our group has representatives here. I have Vince Torres, Vince, yeah. Ariel Kayana, part of our group. Rainer Lorenzo, and Joe Rosario. And allow me to introduce the founders of Harnyss. I have CEO Kirby Smith here. Brilliant individual, but also very good looking. And Philip Martin, who's the CTO. We have a little joke among us. We call Philip our eye candy. So, all right. Here you go, Kirby. Thank you.
Good morning. So if I haven't introduced myself or shook your hand when we came in, I apologize. Please come up to me after we're done here. I'd love to meet each one of you. But if I haven't met you, my name is Kirby Smith, and I am the CEO of Harnyss. We're based out of Fort Worth, Texas. Jeff made a great introduction. I appreciate it, sir. But we had a few lies. We actually left the brilliant people back home. We're just the ones that come out and get to talk about the great technologies that all of our engineers help us move forward. So as we're talking here about power. And the islands is a great case because there's a huge need for individual resilient power. So there's a couple things to our technology that we want to talk about first before we get into the solution. But there's two things I want to talk about real quick because I know these are going to be the two questions in your mind as we're speaking. So I want to get those answered right off the bat. The first one is going to be, is this real? Is it R&D? Is it actually on the ground? And we're actually operating around the world. Our facility in Fort Worth, Texas actually runs off the solution. We're grid free. We run off the solution. The second thing is, how much does this cost? That's always the first question when people ask, because there's great technologies out there, but how much does it cost? If you look at a 20-year LCOE, that's levelized cost of electricity, our solutions, we produce electricity from anywhere, depending on the size and depending on the location, 8 to 15 cents US a kilowatt. I believe that's around that average 5 to 6 pesos a kilowatt. A lot lower than what you're paying right now, right? So that was the main goal of our company. We are a green company, clean energy company, but it had to make business sense first. So that's what we did when we designed this. So we'll talk about the solutions in a second, but first there's 2 technologies that we want to walk through and explain on what we use inside of our solution. And the first one, which everyone's here to listen to, is about the hydrogen. Harnyss's IP is based around hydrogen storage. We have patents globally on the hydrogen storage. And what makes our storage different? Well, our storage, traditionally, hydrogen stored is under high compression, right? 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 PSI. It's a bomb. Usually we don't use that word in our business, but it's a bomb. So it costs a lot of money to be able to compress that hydrogen. What our technology does, we actually take hydrogen and we store it, we bond it with our technology inside the cylinder. So we store it at low pressure, 17 bar, 250 PSI, extremely low pressure, a little bit more than a hairspray can. Not only are we storing hydrogen at low pressure, but we're able to store a lot of hydrogen in a very small footprint. For example, if this was a hydrogen cylinder, compared to high pressure hydrogen, we can store 3 to 5 times more hydrogen in that same footprint, but at low pressure. So now we've solved the footprint of storing hydrogen, and we've solved the safety factor of storing hydrogen. We actually had the US military shoot one of our cylinders with an incendiary round, an explosive bullet. The bullet goes into the cylinder, the bullet explodes like it's supposed to. There's a quick clear flame, and then it goes out. There's no explosion, there's no shrapnel. In fact, the majority of the hydrogen stays inside of our cylinder because it's already bonded to our technology. So now we've made hydrogen safe. But now we gotta look at the cost-wise. So because we are storing at low pressure, we can go from electrolysis. Our hydrogen production produces at low pressure. We can go from hydrogen production in one tube, go directly into our cylinders. The difference is, on high pressure, when you're producing hydrogen, you have to go through compression. The compression equipment is expensive, the operations, the maintenance, but it also uses a lot of electricity. In fact, the compression part of hydrogen is 40% of the cost of the gas. We eliminate that whole balance of plant. We have no compression equipment. So now we've made hydrogen cheaper, right? So now we got these great technologies. And so the hydrogen component, we sat there and we go, okay, what are we gonna do with this? How do we incorporate this into a microgrid solution? So we said, well, we have one missing factor. We need energy storage. So the energy storage component, we wanted to eliminate lithium batteries. Everyone understands the problem with lithium batteries, the thermal runaway, the degradation. You got to replace them every 3 to 4 years. We wanted to eliminate that whole process. So that's where my business partner, Bill Martin, and myself, we got together. We started bringing in the second component, and that's energy storage. Bill, do you want to talk about that?
Just keep in mind what these two gentlemen were talking about this solution that does not require any external source of fuel. And let's see how that applies to how we live, how you live in the Philippines and how I live in the islands. Because in the islands, just like the Philippines, our fuel is shipped in. 95% of our energy is shipped in. So with this type of solution, you eliminate that, right? And imagine with the geopolitical tensions in our area, if for some reason the shipping lines were to cease, what happens to our food that we ship in? What happens to the energy that we ship in? That halts. So now we won't have electricity. Now with a solution like this, all you need to do is, all you would need to do is just take this solution, replace the existing conventional generators with this system, and now the islands out here in the Philippines can run fuel-free, independent of fossil fuel. And that's important because now with tensions picking up, that may be a reality. Food on Guam, 90% of our food is shipped in. So if those shipping lines were to cease, then we're in big trouble. So I can relate to how things are here in the Philippines because we all live on islands, and that could be a reality sometimes. So in order to achieve energy security, we have to detach ourselves from fossil fuels because we are not the source of fossil fuels. We get fossil fuels from another country, Singapore, or whether it's from the source, but we get it shipped in. So what's important is to try to figure out a way to become energy independent and try to achieve energy security so that if they do stop those shipping lines, we'll still have power throughout the country or throughout the islands.
So we don't have an option of, would you like A, B, or C, right? You have to buy one of those. Everything we produce is strictly directly for the customer. And so when we produce those, we can do anything from 100 kilowatts up to multiple megawatts. We're actually working on a project that's 800 megawatts in power. So everything is scalable, and we just daisy chain the containers together. So as the system grows, we can start on a smaller system or the size of the community or the need. As that need grows, we can add and grow with the client. So you're never gonna buy more than what you need. There's not gonna be wasted power. We're gonna build it to what you need. And obviously this animation shows what exactly I was just talking about. But remember, we can use any kind of resource. It's not just solar, it could be wind. A lot of people already have diesel generators on these islands that they've already spent the money on. We can actually hook those generators to our systems, and those can be the backup to the backup to the backup, right? So you can still use it in case that whatever happens. One more video, if you don't mind.
Kirby, if you don't mind.
No fuel being delivered. We want to produce our own fuel on board and control everything in the system. So again, we take water from the air, we bring water into the container, and we produce our own hydrogen. Green hydrogen, right? Renewable. So now we have the hydrogen, we produce the hydrogen, and we store it in our technology that I talked about earlier. So we store it safely, large amounts at one time. On the other side, you see that there's a fuel cell. So when we need to produce electricity, we take the hydrogen, we run it through the fuel cell, and it produces electricity. Okay, that's the front part. If you look on the back of the container, back side of the container, that's where Bill was talking about. That's the storage, the energy storage, right? We also have the energy management system, all the inverters, everything is built. When you open the container, it looks like a laboratory. It is a microgrid in a box. Okay? So, with that system, we use renewable power, solar mostly. That's the cheapest form of producing electricity, right? But we need to make it efficient. So let's take, for example, solar. Actually, we can hook up wind, tidal. If they have a diesel generator that they already purchased, they can hook to our system too. We can hook up to 8 different resources of power at one time into our system. So it can be grid tied. The grid can go through our system. Both the diesel generator, wind, the solar, everything else can run through our system. We manage all of that power. Not only do we manage it, we condition it. As you've seen, a lot of the grids around the Philippines, the power is dirty. right? It damages all the equipment in the building, so on and so forth. What our system does, if the grid's running through it, we condition that power, and it comes out pure sine. So the other side, you don't have to worry about surge protectors. We take care of that. The main system is, we're hooked up to, so we can be grid tied, or we can be solo primary. We don't have to have a grid connected. We can operate as the primary source. We can operate as a backup system as well, if you wanted to. So on this system, during the day, the solar is running through our container, right? It runs through the container, and it goes to, let's say, a compound that's powered. But at that same time, it's storing energy in our supercapacitors. So that when nighttime comes, we can run through the whole time. So this means that we're a 24-hour operation. So we'll power all the time. Again, nothing's being delivered to us, right? But as in the Philippines, you understand typhoons, rainy season. Sometimes there's not enough solar to charge up those supercapacitors, right? That's when you use the hydrogen. You use the hydrogen components as the backup. Okay? So when that system gets down to, say, 30% power, we know that renewable's not coming back online because there's a typhoon coming through. That's when we use the hydrogen to run through the fuel cell, and that charges up the supercapacitors. So the hydrogen side is a storage extender, right? It gets us to the point of when that renewable's coming back online, right? So now we're totally self-sufficient. It's just producing everything that we need on board. Okay. Looking at maintenance. Maintenance is minimal. There's really no moving parts in this whole system. Okay. There's some filters that have to be changed out a couple times a year. And that's it. We can operate and manage the whole system off of our phone anywhere in the world. Right. Speaking of maintenance, we don't want to be a company, Harnyss, who's based in Fort Worth, Texas. We don't want to be one of those companies that comes in and we offer the solution, we put it in place, and then we're gone. Never will get it. That's why we teamed up with Jeff and Joe and these gentlemen here in the Pacific. So we're always here. We have a presence in the Pacific. So we're here to help support and maintain those systems as well. So all these things we talked about, making the business case, the value case that pays us per kilowatt, right? We're self-sustainable, we're resilient, we're also green. The green part's a bonus. We're actually 100% recyclable, 75% biodegradable. We are carbon net zero. We make no heat signature, there's no noise, we're silent. So you can put these systems up next to housing, compounds, there's no noise. 100% zero. So we're actually that, when I say microgrid in a box, we're all of that plus. Does that make sense? Should I make sense? Am I coming across clear to that? There's going to be questions, I know. I had questions.
Brother, you are a sense of wisdom.
Sure.
It saves sense. It saves sense. Sense of dollars.
Yes.
And it makes a lot of sense.
That's right.
They ran a publicly traded engineering, procurement, construction company for about almost 10 years, and we installed almost 2 gigawatts of solar. So we were in the very early days of installing solar and understood the limitations that solar had. The utilities in the US were investing all of this money installing solar, but then they found out that it was only producing power 1/3 of the day. Unfortunately, we still like to have power when we come home and cook our meals and watch TV and all those other things. So that meant they had to keep all these nuclear plants and coal plants and everything else running. So now they have the additional cost of the nuclear plants running and what they invested in the solar farm. So in California, they found out first about this duck curve that Jeff talked about, was that we were producing all of this solar energy during the day and weren't using it. So how do we capture some of that to utilize power when we need it the most, which was in the morning and the evenings, right? When you wake up and then when you come home to cook. So they started introducing lithium batteries to do that. Now, I won't bash lithium. It has its purpose. And, normally they integrate the lithium to run 2 to 4 hour increments, but after that, it's no good. So unfortunately, I'm sure here and in the US, we still want power, at 8, 10 o'clock in the morning until we wake up. Because I don't know about you guys, but I like to have my air conditioning on and stay cool all through the night. So what we were trying to do whenever me and Kirby got together was find out something that was resilient. Because our first approach was really to take out diesel generators. We were approached by the Department of State in the U.S. and said, hey, can you replace these diesel generators all around the world? Well, I mean, understanding about U.S. embassy and compounds, when you get on them, I mean, Iraq being the largest U.S. embassy, they run off all diesel generators. If the compound ever got attacked, how would they get fuel to replace, to power those generators? So we wanted something that was resilient. So we went to supercapacitors, which have been around since the 50s. It's not brand new technology. The technology is new, is that we control the output of the power. So supercapacitors have always been designed to take in power real quickly, release it real quickly, but our IP was around controlling that output of power. To give you some idea, I mean, if you know about anybody own EVs, an electric vehicle, and understand how long it takes to charge up, even on an ultra-fast charger, it's going to take you 45 minutes to an hour. If we put supercapacitors in an EV, you can charge up in 6 seconds. So now we solved one of the problems of lithium, is that we could charge up our energy storage real quickly. So in the first few hours of the day when the sun comes out, we can charge up all our supercapacitors, then it can be available to you for the rest of the day. In addition, if you push a lot of power into lithium batteries, you cause dendrites and you cause damage to the cells and eventually, potentially fires. You know, lithium battery fires have increased over 150% over the last 2 years. You may or may not have heard of them. I know in the United States we see it all the time. So with ours, it's a lot safer. And as Kirby says, it's powering our facility in Fort Worth. What he didn't tell you that is our container is in the middle of the building. So that's how safe we think it, how safe we know it is, because the fire inspector had it inspected and everything else. So now we have a safe storage solution. And then the other thing we tackled was with lithium batteries, you can only use 80% of the battery, right? So if you need a 20 megawatt solution, that means you have to install 25 megawatts. With ours, we had 100% of depth of discharge. And Jeff didn't mention it, but one of the reasons that the lithium batteries failed when they stormed hit Guam was because they drained those lithium batteries. With ours, you can drain them and recharge them every day. So for a cycle with this, it's considered a drain. When it drains the battery and charges it back up, with lithium, you'd only get 4,000 to 5,000 cycles. We get 500,000 cycles. That means we can warranty our system for 20 years, but it'll actually run 40 to 45. Remember, we said we want something that was resilient. So here is something resilient. Once you put it in place, it'll last as long as your solar panels. So now we have something that's resilient, safe, and it's efficient. Our round trip efficiency on our supercapacitor is 99.1%. That means we store and utilize energy more efficiently than anything else. And with that, now we have the real reason we started doing this, and was the business case. It had to make financial sense.
What's for the air or solar? You have to help.
I'm trying to relate that with the different cooperatives in the Philippines. They normally get their power from the grid and you give it. My question is, and I hope you don't mind if I jump into the financial side of it.
Please.
If you produce 1 megawatt, will you be able to tell us how much it will cost to be able to produce the power required for 1 megawatt? And the second question is that if I have a solar farm, how much it costs to have to produce, how do you put storage facility from using your technology?
No, good questions. I appreciate it. And actually, there's a couple of different ways to look at that. So the first question, well, kind of pre-question you had was talking about the utilities. So we're actually working with a couple of different islands that already have utilities there. We use their network. So we connect to their network. So you don't have to run wires all over the place. We use the existing network that's already there. It's just that we're replacing whatever they're generating right now, they're using our system. So we're not taking away jobs either. So the people who run those facilities, those power generation facilities, they're doing the same thing. They still have to maintain their network, the lines, the distribution. That's the most work. What we're doing is we're eliminating the diesel generators and we're putting our system in place. And we just connect to the grid that way.
basically cooperatives are running using the normal coming from the grid. I think the cooperatives wanted to do is to be self-sufficient and producing their own.
That's right.
And a lot of those cooperatives are entertaining the LNG technology, LNG kind of source. And this one, I think, is a good solution. I think they will, let me jump on how much it costs for them. One cooperative supplying 25 megawatts in their community, in their jurisdictions. If you relate that, how much it will cost them to be able to put up one using your technology?
Yeah.
I think they want to become individual power producers.
That's right.
Yeah, so let me, I mean,
Independent power producers.
there's not a simple answer to that, but I will tell you, we did a case study on running a generator versus using our system, and over the life of it, you would be spending 10 times more on a generator. So one of the biggest things we're doing in the United States now with all the nations, all the Indian nations, is giving them energy sovereignty, right? So you control your energy. In fact, a lot of commercial organizations are doing the same thing. Right now, you are controlled by the cost of electricity, right? So when fuel goes up, your energy prices go up. If shipping goes up, your energy prices go up. But if you control your system, you pay for it once, and it doesn't fluctuate, right? So when we say that your energy is going to be produced between 8 to 15 cents a kilowatt hour, we're saying that's going to be your price for the next 20 years, if not longer. Does that make sense?
So it depends on what LG wants. So we will be looking, and another one will be the policy. We have to understand the policy well of the Department of Energy because it covers all. But the suggestion is very bright. Remember, the government, one of the what they call main mandate of the government is provision of basic community need, and electricity just like.
Yeah, let's start it over.